Well, this is my father, Reuben Taylor Clark, and he was a very kind man. He didn't get married till he was 35, and because he was a bachelor for so long, his brothers and sisters depended on him, and they continued to depend on him to come to their aid at any time, even after he had a family of his own. And but Dad was a very happy type of man, jokey, laughed a lot, and he'd say, if you finish up this job, why, we'll go to the circus. We always went to the circus parade and fall fairs. He was very, well, he just loved being out in company, and he belonged to the council for years. He was always on the school board as long as I guess until he died. And when he died, he had one of the largest funerals that was ever held in Battersea Church. He was 65. Well, that was considered older at that time, but he'd outlived what his parents had. He had heart trouble. He was sick most all his life, for as long as I remember, because he didn't get married till he was 35. He was sick most all his life. And this is my mother. And she was a very stately type of woman, very beautiful. Dad said he didn't have a daughter that could come anywhere up to her. But she was only 25 when she married Dad. And this picture of her is when she was 18. And she was very kind, considerate, I would say, and good housekeeper. In fact, she kept the teacher to pay for us to go to high school. She put Sarah and I, that was the way Sarah and I got our education. We went over and roomed $1.25 a week, and Mother kept the teacher to pay for it. I guess we better take another one. Now I haven't the first picture of the first two, because Sarah has. So there's John. He was a white-haired boy when he was little. He was born at 7 months. 7 months. So he was 2 months premature. And my grandmother and mother, I looked after him. My grandmother was there. And they kept him wrapped in cotton batting and in the oven, and kept him like as if he was a preemie now. And nobody, when the doctor got as far as Battersea, he said, Rube's got a boy down there, but he's dead now. But John isn't, he's still living. And Sarah, she was a beautiful girl. She had dark, curly hair and brown eyes that just shone. And then I came next, and I was straight blonde hair, and chubby when I was young. And then Russell. That, believe it or not, that little one is a Russell. And he was really a pet when he was small. He was only 1.5 years younger than I, so you can picture that he and I got into a good many little difficulties together. But he was, that's a boy, but it doesn't look like a boy there. And of course that's Dad as proud as punch, because he's holding Russell. No, Rube wasn't born yet. And
I was going to ask you where Rube was too. Okay.
This picture here, Dad took us in. We all went in together to Kingston, and this was getting near fall, so it was time to get our new fall hats. Now these are what we call, well, they were plush hats, and so Sarah got one, Mother and myself, and as you can see, pearls were the style then, because we each had a string of pearls. Mother had made us our midi suits. Those were all go with the pleated skirts, and we always dressed alike, the two of us. And this was my brother John up here with a pompadour, but Dad had said that day that we weren't dressed for getting picture taken. But Dad said, I haven't had a picture taken with Rube on my knee yet. And of course, as you see in the last picture, Russell was on his knee, but he waited a long time for Reuben. Reuben wasn't really sitting on Dad's knee by this time, as a rule. But this is little Russell, but down here. He is just a year and a half, not quite younger than I am. This is me here. I wasn't always fat. And this is Reuben, of course, on Dad's knee. And Dad was quite proud of his family. Mother wasn't quite happy, very happy about getting her picture taken that day because she wasn't dressed for it, because she was a very stylish woman, liked to look her best. But of course, as you can see, I wasn't quite as neat in her, I haven't been even yet, as Mother was. Now, going on from that, what was I going to do now?
Your father and mother, right?
Well, this one here.
Yeah.
Now, you've got Dad and Mother before. This is, Dad was ill, as I've said before, most of his life. And the last few years, he spent more time in a chair than...
Just turn it up a little sharper to me.
he spent most of his time just in a chair, sitting in the yard, and panting for his breath. The last 2 years particularly. That's, it was hard for him to even get his breath. So, but he was better the day he died than he'd been in a long time. There's Mother. It was after Dad's death, and she spent a lot of time with Ruth. And there she is holding, well, this was long after Dad's death. She was holding Richard Anglin there. Now we'll go back to when I was married. And this is a picture of the wedding group. You can see, if you can see it, it's Grandpa Kenny, Grandpa Reuben Kenny there, and Ford Kenny, of course, next, and Grandma. This is my father, my mother in there, and Sarah was the bridesmaid, and Velma and Ruth were the two flower girls. And Mr. Frere was the preacher that called me Beanie. Now this is John and Grace at their wedding. I hope you can see them. John looks pretty white there because of the arch. Now they built an arch in their front yard down at the stone house. Down at the stone house. And if you look back, you can see I guess I was in the background there with, I guess, Joyce probably. And this
So
was...
you there with Joyce?
That was, no, that's Blanche with her. Yeah, that's Blanche and with Gerald. And, but it was a lovely wedding. And that same day, then they decided that they'd all stand behind their husbands, their wives. And they sat the wives all down on chairs, and each husband stood behind his wife. Now there's Sarah, as you can see, a little square. There's Sarah, and she, as she was a child, she always was very sophisticated and very neat, and everything was perfect about her. And there she is, when that long after, she was still the same person, and that's her husband behind her. Who's at the far end there? Can you see? Oh, it's out. No, who is that?
Reuben?
Oh, Reuben Blanche? Yes, that's Reuben Blanche. That's Reuben, my youngest brother, Blanche. And there is Russell. We always said he was saying the benediction over Verna. And this is Grandpa and Grandma. They're pretty young looking there. And then beside them is Grace and John, of course, the bride and groom. And then my mother is sitting here, and I'm standing behind her because Dad isn't alive now. And Osborne is holding the baby. And that's Keitha and Eldon.
Who's the baby?